All right. Sorry for the delay. I was telling everyone here, my sugar ran real low and I got real shaky and confused. So I've got a full strength Coke. I got some honeyed cashews and some other snacks. So weirdly, the cafe in the library is open, but the UC cafeteria is not.
That closes by like 4:30.
I don't.
No, but I can pull it. Let's say 3:45 and start cleaning. Yeah.
And then you get dirty looks if you order something because they're like, I just cleaned this kitchen. Why are you making me do stuff? Which is like, I get, like, it sucks to have to do work twice. But like, why did they clean it before they're closed? I guess because they're not allowed to stay past 4 and they get in trouble for staying past 4 because that costs the the company money to pay their staff. But like, okay, I don't know. Staffing food service is difficult, right?
I got a sandwich for like 350 one time, but I think the more they get dirty was actually through the guy who made like sometimes, so he was like super happy to make it for me.
Okay, that's nice.
But yeah, I didn't know. I know it closed at like 5. I didn't know.
Do we not have evening classes at this school? Is this rare? I feel like we have a lot of evening classes.
It's not rare, but it's not common. Yeah, but it's
Really?
I didn't even think it was my first ever PA class.
Really? Yeah, I'm curious now. Okay, so I know like over the summer that's probably more rare, but like fall's open. So CIS is probably a little bit more advanced, right? Where's our? Right, well, let's look at the higher level classes because I think most of the higher level classes. All right, so let's see.
Are you able to sort by time?
I don't. Probably if I did the advanced search. What's in the advanced search? No. I don't. There's no time. There's day, but no time. That's awful. Why would they not let you search by that? Sure. I guess we probably don't have that many options anyway. But like, all right. This is an evening class, Java programming in the fall. And what else do we have this evening? They'd all be like 6 p.m., right? 6 p.m. are all the evening classes. So here's a Computer Science 1 evening class. What was that? It just made some noise. My friend, thank you for donating those bits to the Student Scholarship Fund here at the University of Michigan Dearborn College of Engineering and Computer Science. I'm excited to show you. I just updated the Twitch channel because I had a payout. I was like, oh, I should donate that money before I forget. And then it was Giving Blue Day. They're like, the university with the $17 billion endowment's like, please give us money. Which is, goes to good causes, right? We should not echo here. Okay, good. I'm mute. I've donated $550 now from Twitch paying me $541. So I'm like ahead by $8. Yay! I don't want to ever be behind. So like I try and round. So we've donated $550 to the scholarship fund thanks to Twitch giving me money for being here. And it's better than I feel like it's better than Zoom. I know you don't get to like ask questions with your voice. I did a class over Zoom once, and the only questions I ever got were via text chat. And I was like, okay, why am I staring at a bunch of black screens? And then you have to record it, and it takes a bunch of space, and I have to convert it to upload it to YouTube, and like this is a big pain. I think Twitch is more fun. Wolf, thanks for subscribing with your Twitch Prime sub and donating that. I think $2.50. I think is still the split, right? You pay $5, but Twitch takes half of it. I don't know what they actually get off of Prime because it's linked here, but it still pays out $2.50 for that Prime sub. So thank you. That's super awesome. I forget what we were doing. Were we doing something? Oh, we were looking at evening classes, right? Because that makes a lot of sense. So there's an evening class. Here's an evening class. Java programming, right, was an evening class. Software engineering is an evening class. But that one section of it, at least, right, is an evening one. Okay, so we're getting there. I think the graduate program is mostly evening, right? Here's 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Hey, thanks for following along and subscribing, PJ Buttercups. Appreciate it. Intro to Artificial Intelligence is an evening class. All right. Evening classes and food. This is because of food and evening classes at this school, right? All right. I don't know. All right. We don't have to do that. That's all right. That is not all that interesting. But we should check out our schedule. So we are moving on to database programming and entity framework. So sorry, last week was a little light. Doing mostly better. Sinuses are like the worst thing in the world. You get sinus infections, it's even worse. And all right. Anyway, oh my goodness, my friend, someone just gifted 10 subs here. That's $25 to the scholarship fund. Thank you so much. And I love how like the coffee is flying around the world here. Twitch Inception. That is super cool, my friend. Thank you so much.
You are a legend.
You are a legend, my friend. That's right. I should stick to that the phrase, right? And a hype train.
Last semester.
That's always fun. I don't know. You got to have some sayings, right? Well, that's super cool. Thank you so much for the support. Trying to make education a little bit cheaper here, at least. And thanks for you folks paying. At least anyone can go and watch the videos online. Unless you pay money, though, you don't get the piece of paper that says you learned something. So, or the piece of paper that says you completed the classes. I should phrase that better. It doesn't actually say that you learned anything. We assume that you did, but I don't think it guarantees that fact. So.
The piece of paper is one good in my book. My book is really trustworthy.
Yeah, your piece of paper says you're good in my book. And ideally, you're getting assessed by someone with expert knowledge, and then they pay that person with expert knowledge to say things to you, and hopefully you retain them, and eventually you get assessed. And we give you a letter grade that gives you a GPA and all sorts of nonsense. But the GPA matters to some companies that give internships because they need some sort of filter so they don't get gazillions of applicants. So that a lot of companies will say you need a certain GPA to get an internship. So at some point that's important, and ideally ties itself to effort and mastery of the material, which is not always the case. But generally, if you try hard and you learn the stuff, you get an A. I'd like to imagine. The classes under my control, the ones I give grades for, generally that's the case. If you know the material and you try hard, you should get an A. People rarely don't get A's who try hard and know the material. So anyway, database programming and entity framework. So we talked a little bit about databases. If you didn't have the database course yet, that's okay. The concepts will matter that we talked about, this idea of having tables with data in it, which is similar to we describe nouns and they have attributes. Right? We kind of maps very well to classes in that concept here. A couple specific things with databases. Right, I think we pulled up our, let me reconnect to this one here. I think, there we go. Tables, course, instructor section. Now you'll notice the way that these things relate to each other here. So sort of, if we think of this conceptually here, we have this section idea here, right? This was section. And then a section is going to have a lot of students enrolled in it, probably, right? So this idea of student. So one student can take many sections, and one section can have many students in it. We could do that sort of connection here conceptually. So if student had a list of sections as code, right? You can have a list of another object. So student could have a list of sections, and section could have a list of students. The problem with that is that now you've loaded that section in, and that section has the list of students, which you're also included in, and has all the other students, and all those students have lists of sections that they're in, and those sections all have lists of students that they're in, and we've just loaded like the whole network of classes. So anyone in your class, you have all of their classes, and you have all the people in their classes, and all the classes that they take, and we probably now have the entire school database loaded up in that relationship, which is probably more information than we need, right? And it doesn't work well. So this idea of this many sections and many students, this is known as a many-to-many relationship, doesn't work well. It doesn't function well in the database, and it just bad stuff typically happens. So the way of sections relating to students and students relating to sections is tricky. So if the traditional relational database management system, you don't do this thing. What you do instead is you make a joining table that joins these together. So you might have something like a registration. And this actually solves a problem here before, because with section and student, how do you assign the student a grade to that section that they took when they finished the class? Where do we store their grade information? You don't store it in student, you don't store it in section. So there's no place for it, right? Which is bad because you probably want to store your grade somewhere. so that you can say what your GPA is, that sort of thing. So this registration table here solves that problem. So one section can have many registrations, but one registration has one section. This is crow's foot notation for those of you who care about database modeling and sort of stuff. It's okay. You might just say one and many, like UML style with stars and ones, and that's all fine. Again, take the database class, learn about modeling. It's all sorts of fun stuff. And one student then can have many registrations, but one registration will relate to one student. So a single entry in the registration table relates one section to one student. And then in here, then we can store their grade information. Now we've got a place to put that. So this student, when they took this section, here's the grade that they received for that class. So we no longer have a many-to-many, we have a one-to-many and a one-to-many relationship. It's essentially many-to-many, but we've solved the problem and made it so we can actually store this in the database here and have that information. That solves a lot of problems for us. So back to our table then, right? We want, what do we have per section? We didn't even have a student ID, right? Because we didn't get there yet talking about this. So we need to add another table here. We'll call this one our registration. And I'm sure the college wants to track other sorts of things like, did you pay for this class? That might be something they track here. I don't know. Storing all sorts of financial information is tricky, and that's okay. It's another problem to solve for now. But that's fine. So we'll go to the ID field. We'll say, hey, this is our identity specification. We just auto number this thing, please. And then I want a section ID as an integer, not null, right? Because nulls are bad. We try and never have null things. We'll have a student ID as an integer, which is not null. And then maybe we'll have the grade. And that's probably varchar, I don't know, probably just 2 characters, right? Because you can have A plus, A minus, regular A, B plus, B minus. Like, I don't think you need anything more than 2 letters here. So we'll say varchar of like 2 should be fine here. Okay. I don't want this window right now. This is making me sad. That's fine. Just pull it down. All right, so we get some information here that we can store. Again, now grade might be null if you haven't finished the class. So in some cases, it might make sense for this to be a nullable option here. Don't want varchar. Here we go, varchar 2. Or and varchar, whichever one was fine. Here, we're not going to use funny Unicode characters. So nulls might be okay. It might make sense to say, hey, if it's null, you haven't been assigned a grade yet. Or we could just have a default value of like blank, the blank character, a blank string, means that you have no grade yet. Right? We just need to decide on one and know that that is the case here. And generally, not having nulls in the database makes life easier for everyone. And you just know what the default value is. All right, cool. So let's go and update this in the database. Make sure that works for us. Cool, and that one finished. So now we should have another table in here. We refresh. There it goes, registration. So we can add registration information here then, right? If I go to my registration table and show table data, we can say, okay, what's the section ID? I think it was probably 1. The student ID was probably 1, and I'll just put A here and give myself an A. Right, so we have some information here. So if I wanted to go add other students or other sections or whatever we wanted here, right? I think we just had, oh, we didn't even have student, shoot. I didn't add the student table yet. So let's go add student. So let's add the student table. Call this one the student table. And then students, what do you have? You have an ID, you have a name, and varchar. Probably 50 characters is probably enough for your name. I don't know. My kid's last name have the hyphenated name, so they have 15 characters for a last name. And they have 2 middle names, so if you put all their first name, 2 middle names, and the last name down, we hit a lot of characters. I think 50 is probably enough, though. You got name. You might want your major, other information. There's all sorts of other things we could store. We don't care too much right now, but that's probably fine. Varchar 50. Sure, that's probably good enough. So add this one. Oh, I forgot to do the identity spec. So let's make this one the identity. I think I changed the name here, right?
STD, is that misspelled?
Oh, dude. Yeah, okay. Spell it correctly. Thank you. Yes, that is important. All right, so let's do that one. I keep hitting Control S for save. Come on, computer. I think it did that last time, right? It just took a minute, and then it failed, and then it tried it again, and it worked. That one work? Okay, so that one worked. So now we should have another table here. So now we can go back and fix our relationships here. So we'll go back to registration here. We need to go add some foreign keys. Where do these things relate? Because the database's job is to maintain the integrity of the data. If I reference a student by student ID number 1, that student must exist. Because otherwise, I won't be able to find the student who registered for this class. So bad stuff happens. So adding these at the database level is generally pretty handy here. So this is registration to, I don't know, let's call it student. I can't spell student apparently, to student. And then we can go fix. So we'll say, hey, this is the foreign key is going to be my student ID field, references the student table, ID field, ID. Right, so what field in my table references what table, what field. Okay, cool, so we got that one, and we'll add another one here. We can have two. This is my student to section, or registration to section here. And that's going to be my section ID. ID is going to reference, I should do that lowercase d, shouldn't I? That should match. The section table ID field. Okay, so we need to rename those lowercase d's, otherwise that's going to drive me nuts. Not actually important here, but that's okay. And we'll update our table. I'll make sure we get the foreign keys added. Update fail. Oh, because I don't have a student. So it did fail, because I think I had some data in here, but it didn't have a student for it yet. Didn't give me a good error, though. That's sad. Where's my error? View results. I think this one of these windows in here is going to tell me what it is, right? I don't even see the errors here. That's all right. It's somewhere in here. There are way too many windows open. Oh, here we go. Registration to section failed. Somewhere in here. That's fine. Let's go make sure we have all the data here. So we had a section for show the data. Okay, we got a section number 1. Oh, this section ID is number 2. So our data is bad already there. So we'll go back to registration. That should be section 2 here. And then we'll go and add a student. Let's show table data. And we should add, here's Eric Chernesky, ENG. Okay, now we'll have a student 1. So now we should be able to go fix our registration table. Maybe. Update. Come on. Update. My little like stop and try again thing's not working. That's weird. Come on, try it again. All right, fourth time's the charm, I guess. Sure, why not? All right, we've updated our table. Now we got the table set. So now we've got places to store all this information. We got more stuff going on here. Now, what do we even do with all this now? So there is a way to interact with this in code, so we don't have to learn SQL. If you know SQL, that's great. You can talk SQL to your database and give it some commands. You can do your selects, your inserts, your updates, your deletes. SQL commands are great. Learn about it in the database class. But it'd be really nice if we could just use code, because we're learning how to use code and do things in code, right? Because code's what we really like. So to do that, we need a couple tools. So there's the Entity Framework Core, which is the newer release of Entity Framework, which lets you deal with database entities in code. So you've got two options when you deal with Entity Framework. When I show Entity Framework, usually I like building the database first and then having the code written for me, because you've never done it before. The code's not going to make a lot of sense. If you want, you can write code, and then Entity Framework will create a database for you, which is really cool. It'd be nice to be able to do that, but you have to do it a very certain way. And generally, it's it might have been really confusing to build out the tables too, but I feel like that's less confusing than writing the code that we don't know what it does. So if you want, you can write some code like this. Hey, I've got a set of blogs here. I have a set of posts here, and then I have a class for blog and a class for post. And then it will generate a database for you from this, which is really cool. It's a nice option. kind of a weird way to go about it though, because this is, I feel like, a little awkward. But that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to, where is it in here? Our the reverse. Come on. There we go. So we are going to reverse engineer the code from a database. There's a command you run to do it. So you have to do a couple things first. So you have to install your tools first. So this Entity Framework tools in the package manager console. So one of the cool things you get to do with C# projects or Visual Studio projects is you can use this NuGet package manager. NuGet is the tool of choice for using other packages that already exist. Other people have written code, they've published it, we can go ask NuGet to get it for us. So we can manage the NuGet packages. We need 2 packages here. Let's see, just erase that one here. Okay, you need the Microsoft Entity Framework Core dot something. So for us, ours is SQL Server because we built a SQL Server database when we did the stuff from last week that supports all sorts of different relational database managers, and even some non-relational database managers you can do cool stuff with later. We're not going to get to that. That's beyond what we're going to do. So we built ours as a Microsoft SQL Server database. So we need the SQL Server version here. So you just go to Browse and you type in Entity Framework, and you can see all sorts of cool Entity Framework stuff. So here's the core one. Here's all sorts of other specific packages that we're going to use here. So we need the one specific for our database, and then we need their tools package. The tools package is used to do this reverse engineering. So once we install both those packages, so you just search them and say, hey, you want to install, you have to accept the license, which no one ever reads anyway. It's a little scary to agree to a bunch of things, but they probably don't want your firstborn child or anything like that. So it's probably okay.
You wouldn't know.
What?
You wouldn't know.
I don't know if it was actually a joke or not, but I heard at one point someone went to court over those like terms of use agreement things, and the lawyer's argument was legitimately no reasonable person can read 30 pages of legalese and understand what they're agreeing to. You can't expect this customer to actually have read and agreed to this. And I feel like the judge said, yeah, that makes sense. But anyway, so install these two things, then we're going to run some commands. So if you want, you can do it all at the command line because we love command line tools. Command line tools are fantastic. You can go update packages. That's the tools one. Okay, so for us to run, so using the .NET Core command line interface or in Visual Studio. I'm more of a fan of Visual Studio because this is kind of what we've been doing here. So you're going to, after you've installed your tools here, you're going to give it this command to say scaffold the DB context. Build out my database context. And you have to tell it where this thing lives and what type it is. This is the SQL Server one here. So I'm going to grab all this command here, or look, you even have the copy button. Now the problem is my database is not named Chinook. That doesn't exist, right? But if you go back to Visual Studio and you go to your Server Explorer and check in your database, it gives you the connection string right here as one of the properties here. So we can just copy this whole thing here, and we come back over, and we're going to replace this line, everything in the quotes here, with that connection string. So it says, okay, it's localDB, MySQL Server localDB. This is just a local database file. Attach this file here, C users, Eric C, documents, GitHub, yada, 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 yada. Big long string here, database1.mdf. The integrated security means we're just going to log in because we're logged into Windows. SQL Server supports SQL Server logins. They're generally not in fashion. Building out the security level there is awkward. It's nicer to use other integrated tools anyway. On a connection timeout, this is just, if it takes more than 30 seconds, just give up. Because some database stuff takes a really long time. So in our case, we're just going to say bail early, and that's okay. So you take all this here, we'll copy that. And so I already ran it here, which is why this is all showing here, but you'll go to Tools and the NuGet Package Manager console. In the NuGet Package Manager console, you can run commands. So we can paste in here, hey, I want to scaffold my DB context. Please build all the classes I need to interact with this database from the database file. Let's see what we get. Oh, I need to use the force one. So I already ran it once. So it's saying, hey, it already exists. So let's use the force flag. Let's say dash force. All right, and now stuff pops up over here. I have a registration class here that was generated for me. Notice it's a partial class as well. This idea you can have more than one file define these things here. You generally don't want to mess with code that's generated, right? So if we want to add features and functionality to registration here, I wouldn't do it in this file because it's likely to get blown away. Excuse me. So registration has an ID, has a section ID, has a student ID, has a grade. Then it even has a actual section object and an actual student object. Right? The IDs relate to those things, but then Entity Framework says, oh, you want the instance of the class here that relate to it. And then a bunch of defaults here, those are all fine. We have section, we have student, right? Student has a collection of registrations. As long as it's an I collection, it's some sort of collection. We don't care what type of collection, whether or not it's a list or these other things here. It fits the bill, right? It fits that interface. Great, we've got it. So we've got a bunch of classes now, and the big one here is this ugly thing here, this C users, Eric C documents, GitHub, CIS. Why is it down here? That's the wrong place to be. Just drop in here. There we go. So this one's really long. I'm going to get rid of this other one that we've changed. Oh, I'll leave it here for a minute. So it defaults to this big ugly name. That's okay. It's not great. We should probably just rename it here. So I'm going to go rename. Let's just call this our database context. It's too long here. I don't need the whole path there. This is our database one MDF context. We can probably clean it up even more if we wanted here. But this defines the database itself and says, okay, the database has a set of courses. It has a database set of instructors, a database set of registrations, sections, students. And then it's got some other stuff in here, which is really neat. Does some cool things. These are defining all my foreign keys, all sorts of fun things. This is telling me about the student entity, right? Great. All sorts of stuff auto-generated. We don't have to write any of this, which is the goal, right? We don't want to write more code than we need to. Excuse me. So to use this now, it's saying, hey, go open up this database file in C users, Eric C documents, GitHubs, yada, 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 yada. Here's the long file. Now, the problem with this is if I want to work with someone else, they probably don't have a folder named C users, Eric C documents, GitHub. This is not great, right? And then if I want to deploy this and give this program to someone else to run on their computer, this is still not good, right? Now, putting database paths in configuration is the right thing to do here. That takes a couple more steps than we really need to. And it's even telling us, hey, like, it gives us a built-in warning here that you should do these sort of things. So connection strings can sometimes have passwords. Putting passwords into source control is a big no-no, right? Don't put passwords in your source control because everyone has a copy of it, right? Especially if it's a public repository. There's actually people that scan for GitHub repositories to have AWS access keys committed to them. So people are literally watching for access keys to get committed, and then they'll use your AWS key that you've committed by mistake and spin up a bunch of instances in AWS and mine for Bitcoin. And by the time you wake up in the morning, you got a $100,000 bill from AWS services in your lap, and they mined some Bitcoin and then ran away. It's real bad. Don't put your keys out there, right? So you can follow the links to figure out how to do this sort of stuff, all sorts of good things. Again, we're just going to skip over that and say this is bad, and we'll be okay with that. But what we want, though, is to be able to give this to someone else to be able to run. So I don't want this C users nonsense thing here. What I want is instead, I want to find where the program is running and have it use that database. So I already did this over in this one here. There is a thing you can use, this app domain, current domain, base directory, is where is this program running? So C# knows where your programs are running here. Oh goodness, come on, there we go. So I'm going to replace that here. And then this just needs to be a interpolated string. So we'll get wherever this database, wherever the program's running, go find the database file. Now the problem with that is by default, Visual Studio doesn't say, hey, you want a copy of this database file? I'm going to go make it for you. So this copy to output directory option on our database file defaults to do not copy. It says, here's your database file in your project. This does not go when you compile your code. Depending on what we're doing, maybe that's good. We might not want to ship an entire copy of our database here. There's all sorts of interesting options, and most of the time we're using a database that's not on our machine anyway, and we'll connect to some actual database server at some organization or some cloud database. Got all sorts of cool stuff. So that's another good reason that your connection strings should be configurable, not put in code. Again, we're doing the easy thing right now. It's okay. We can put config in later if we wanted to. So, but what I want to do is I want to say, hey, let's copy if it's newer. So if there's something newer in my database file here, because this is what I changed in my Server Explorer, I added new stuff, copy it out when we deploy our project, when we run our project. Okay, and then I this one here. Go. So we set up the database to copy. We set up our context with the path here. So the base directory path is going to be the bin debug directory, right? Because it is running from the bin debug that gets compiled. So if we go and open this up here in Explorer, here's our project. Inside of that, there's the bin directory, our binaries directory. Then we have the debug folder, net7 Windows, and then in here we actually get the executable, test project exe. Right, we have our executable and all the other things that it needs, all the other dependencies. Hey, all this entity framework stuff, all these DLLs, dynamic link libraries, this is pre-built code, library code. So all this code is needed for us to run our project. So it gets compiled with it, right, and put together. So I can take this folder now and give it to someone and they can run the program. And again, there's other ways to deploy projects and software, excuse me, that we can get into later. But just for our purposes, right, I can just double click my test project and it opens and runs. It's going to work here. All right, so now that we have scaffolded our project, Entity Framework built the code for us to talk to the database, now we need to go and use it. So on our actual form here, I added a label and a button. Nothing very interesting yet. And for the button here, why is all this code down here? Can I just close all this out? Just close all that. I don't want any of this. I don't know how I got over there. All right. So when I want to use my database, we use this using thing here. So we'll say, because this will open something and close it when we're done with it. You don't want to leave database connections open. So they use resources, and if you have it open, maybe someone else can't connect to it well. And at least for these individual file ones, it's messy. A real database server can handle a lot of connections at once, but you still don't want to hog it. So you open your connection, you do your query, and then you close it. Just like working with files. You open the file, you read or write the file, and then you close it when you're done. Right? Just clean up after yourself. So this is our var context equals new, and this is our database MD1 context. So we're saying, hey, use this database here. Here's the context that was created. So I can use the database in this context. This is all that code that was generated for us here. We can make a new one of these things. Great. Now I can go use it. So once I have that, I've got my variable for it. Now I can use this context, or maybe we call that DB or something. I don't know. You can call it anything you want. Database or database. All right, sure, we'll call it database. When I say database dot, I get a bunch of cool things here. Now, students is a property, right? This is the DB set of students. This is all the students here. So it looks like an object, right? It's just a property of my context here. I've got sections, I have instructors, I have registrations. There's some other stuff in here we don't care too much about. I've got courses, right? So if I wanted to say, let's get the list of sections, or maybe I should do courses. So let's say courses. That's a collection of courses. Now, if I want to do something for each one of those, right, I can say for each var course in database.courses, we can go do something with it. Now I'm going to get the list of courses and I'm going to iterate over them one course at a time. So let's take our label and let's append some text to it. We'll say course dot, and what do we want? Well, we can do the ID number, right, plus, and let's do this as like an interpolated string, right, because that'll make life a little bit easier for us. So here's the course ID, and if we want, we can specify, hey, this is an ID, and then we can add in the name, course.name, and this is already getting a little long here, but that's okay. I think the screen's just too small here with my font zoomed in. A number, or what is it, department, right? Department, course.department, there we go, department, course.number. This is how you'd usually see that, right? So we'll do, here's the ID, name, number, and course name. That's probably fine, right? And then we want to also add in our own new lines. Remember, we're dealing with labels. They don't wrap text, so we got to do this environment new line. Is the better way to do this, especially if we're dealing with core. Let's see. So we'll take the label. We'll add in. Oh, why does it not like it? Oh, label.text. There we go. Let's set the text here, not the label itself. So I'll add to the text. So I'm going to blank the text out every time to start fresh, and I'll go get the list of courses. So what do we expect to have here? So in courses, if we show the table data, we should have C# programming, computer science 1, and computer science 2, right? We should be able to get those back out. Now we haven't written any SQL code. Right? This is the nice thing here. I just said, hey, give me the courses, loop through them, and give me all this course attribute stuff. Right? Entity Framework is translating from database into code for me, so I can interact with this stuff in code, which is nice. You can still talk to it in SQL. You can give it a query string and say you want to select star from courses and then do something with all those attributes, and it's a big pain. You can do that, but this is a nice way of going about it here. Let's give that a run, see what we get here. So I click my button and I get thinking for a second. Notice it's using a lot more memory when it actually connects here. ID 1, CIS 297, C# programming. ID 2, CIS 150, computer science 1. Right, I get the data out. It worked. You guys are impressed, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, questions?
Is the database stuff versus a list or some other?
It is a DB set. So that's the entity framework version of it here. And the reason it's a set, they're going to be unique. You can't have duplicates based on the unique identifier. So we call it a set. You can have attributes that are not marked as unique duplicated. So in our case, we took the easy route. We said this ID field, we're going to make the primary key and the identity specification. So every time I add a new course, it'll just generate a new number. So they're all going to be unique. Nothing will stop me from adding C# 10 times. Later on, we could do something like that. You can add other things to databases, or you can add other things at the application side to check for those sort of constraints and say, hey, you can't have the same class in here twice. We just haven't done that yet, and that's more than we really care about. So eventually, you can take this and you can turn it into a list if you want with this toList option. So a toList will go generate all of them all at once. Without that, we're sort of doing a lazy load. We'll just, as we ask for them, it's going to get the next one, and then the framework takes care of it for us. Depends on kind of what we want to do. If you're working with a very large database, you probably don't want to load it all in memory all at once, right? The way that stuff gets connected and using SQL and things that can like load small bits at a time and ask for more data as you need it. So you don't have to, like, if we're Walmart, I don't want to pull all million transactions at one time. I don't want to load a million transactions in memory. Let me do a couple at a time, load some up, do whatever arithmetic I'm doing with it, and going. So you got some options. So lots of interesting performance stuff later. Now, this is a small pain to have to do it this way, right? To generate all this stuff myself with what is a course name, number, ID. It'd be nice, right, if I could go and take my course class and add a method to it, override the toString method. Now, I don't want to do it here, though. This is the generated file. Don't touch generated files. What we could do is we could go add a new file here. So let's go add a new class. This is our, what do we want to call it? Class, or no, course. Now, all sorts of interesting naming conventions. You can do anything you want here. I'm going to call it course customizations, just because that makes me happy. So that's the file name. But now, instead of this being its own class here, I want this to be a public partial class known as course. Right? I'm going to write another part of that course class. The course class that was generated here is a public partial class called course. I'm going to add course customizations, a file named course customizations, where I define more of that partial class for course. And in here, I can override the public string toString and say, what do I want to do here to override the string method? Well, I'm going to return an interpolated string of all that stuff that I already had before. So this was, what did I have? ID, the ID, and then I had the department, and I had the number, and I had the name. This name, right? Capital N name, right? This will be my toString method. Now, I have it separate because I don't want any of that in that generated file. Because if something changes on my database and I regenerate my files, I don't want it to get blown away. So I'm just going to put it somewhere else, and this is the cool thing with these partial classes we can do. All right, so now, instead of having to do all that in my form code, I can just say, hey, let's take my course to string, right? Interpolate a string and add in the new lines myself. Again, saved a little bit of time. It's just a nice, pretty thing to do. Not required, but it's nice this way, right? Now we've because course should know how to do this itself. It's one option. All right, but all we're doing is listing now. Wouldn't it be nice if we could add some courses to our list here? Let's go do that. So let's add some text areas, right? Where's my goodness. Wow. Text box. Thank you. Text box. Way too low. All right. So we need, and then we should probably label these things, right? So we have, here's the, what do we want to call this one? Our course department, or we'll just say department, right? Department. And again, oh goodness, nope, not that. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to move it. Oh no, I lost it. I undid too much. All right.
I do notice that whenever you take like something that's small generator, just right to the word, that's like 2 or 4 things you can do.
That's undo is dangerous, right? What am I doing with an undo? Where's my label? There we go. All right, we'll try that again. So this is department, and then we'll copy paste these things. Maybe copy paste was a mistake. Department, and we want this one to be number and then name, right? Name. All right, so this will be my department text box, right? We got to give it a nice ID here. So department text box. This is the number text box. And then this is the name text box. Name text box. Great. And then we should add another button here, right, for, maybe we'll call this one add class or add course button. Change the text to add course. All right. When you click this one, we should do the thing. Now, name is probably a little longer here. Right? We want to make that decently long, I guess. Doing all this by hand is really obnoxious, but that's okay. All right, so we add a course. What do we want to do? Well, we want to go get all that information, make sure it's valid, right? So we can get all those attributes. So we need the course equal to new course, and then the course constructor doesn't exist. But we can give it attributes, right? We can use our attributes because these are all properties here. We can say so equals a new course. We can give it name equals name text box dot text. The number equals my number text box text, and the department text box text. Look at that. I love it. Super handy. This is that property, the initializer syntax, right? If we have properties, still not as nice as the constructor, but we could go write a constructor if we wanted. Sure, we could add that to our course customizations. Either way is okay. It's not too bad. Now what do I do with this? Well, I need to get the database context again. So I want to be using our database, new database context. I can take my course, database.course, courses, and I can call add. I can add the course to it. Now we probably should have checked to make sure some of this stuff was valid, but at the end we could do that later, right? That's a to do. Check for valid input. That's a nice thing to do, but we can save that for later, right? Add it to the course, and then what? Well, now we need to go and save. So we want to call save changes. Now there's usually two options here, right? There's save changes and there's save changes async. If there's other stuff for us to do, we can start this asynchronous call, do our other stuff, and eventually it will finish, right? We don't really have any other processing we're going to do, and we want to make sure it does successfully work. So we don't really gain a whole lot by asking to save asynchronously because there's nothing else we're going to do behind the scenes while we wait. Now, at some point, it's nice and your UI should be responsive and you can start a little loading symbol and do all sorts of cool, pretty things like, because it's essentially going to lock the UI. Nothing will respond until this is done, which is probably pretty bad here, but that's okay. So, the nice thing to do is to use async to not lock the UI. Again, beyond what we're going to tackle. Okay, is that okay? All right. Then it'll save the changes, and we should be able to get it listed out the next time. We probably should have emptied those. Let's empty these out. So after that works, then we'll take our name text box, text, and set it to blank. There we go. I just want to set all these to blank here because it'll be a little prettier. Otherwise, we can like add the same one a bunch of times. Right, and we'll do the same one here. Okay, that's just a little bit nicer. All right, so what do we want to add? So let's get our list here. Right, we got the list. What should we add? What class?
Discrete map.
That's a CIS class, right?
Yeah.
Or discrete structures?
Yep.
The 275?
Yeah.
Discrete structures 1 or something?
Yeah.
Okay. Add the course. Right, notice a little bit of memory bump here. Something happened. It didn't show it in the list yet, but once we update here, now we have it in the list. Now, what's going to be weird though is it's not going to show in our database here. Remember, because this is the base database stored at the project level. What we're interacting with is the database that's been copied into this bin debug folder here. Right? There's another copy of this database file over here that was last updated at 7:04 p.m. The database that's in my test project here, my MDF file here, where did it go? Was last updated 4:28. That seems like a bad time. Don't think that's correct. Maybe I just need to refresh. No? Okay. I don't know. We changed it.
Before on time, one time.
Could be. Could be. Oh, this would be West Coast, right? Because we're hours behind, I think. Anyway, so if we go back here to our database and then we look up our course table, we say show table data, it's not in here, right? Because we added it to the working database that was in our directory, not the absolute path one that we lived here. And the reason why that's kind of nice, though, I can take this whole test project folder, go to bin, debug, copy this folder. Let's just copy this one here and go put it somewhere else. Like here's my desktop. And I'll open up the one here on my desktop and we'll give it a run. And I list all the classes. And it's here because this database file is the one that was modified. So I can just ship this file, this folder of stuff out to someone else, and it should just run for them. Again, there's other ways to publish and do applications and nicer things that aren't giving them a copy of a database file and running SQL Express. And we just don't have time for all the cool stuff. So we're like going to intro the topics and then you can do better stuff with it later. But now we've got like a portable application I can go give someone. All right. Cool. You with me so far? Cool. Should we take a break? It's been not quite an hour, but we hit 7. Usually trying to take a break every hour. All right, why don't we take 10? We'll come back, we'll do some more stuff, and then I don't have too much more, but we'll, again, try to start with some basics, so then we can talk about the project. I want it to be small. It usually is a little bit bigger, but we lost some time last week, and I don't want it to run into the final project time, because that's the really important one. This is a fun project, and just because I think it's interesting. I had someone come back and tell me when they did an interview for an internship, they talked about using Entity Framework, and that really impressed the company. And like, I just thought that was really cool. Like that helped get them an internship. So it's just a cool thing. Everything in the world is backed with databases nowadays. So if we can interact with databases and work with them, great. Entity Framework is not the only way for sure, but it's a nice, easy way for us to do it and not have to learn SQL because we can do stuff in code and we love code. All right, so let's take 10 and we'll come back in a little bit. Does that put us at 7:16 or so? 7:17, you got it. All right, welcome on back. I was surprised to learn there are, what did they say? 65 grams of carbs in a 20-ounce Coke. Carbs of sugar, grams of sugar. Grams, 65 grams of sugar. Everything to me is carbohydrates because that affects how much insulin I have to take. So all carbs are the same to me essentially, but this one claims that it's 130% of your daily recommended amount of sugar at 65%. So, or 65 grams. So divided by that, right? What does that tell us? I'm bad at simple math like that.
So you don't feel too bad. I hear lemonade is 133.
133 grams of sugar in the lemonade?
Lemonade.
There's more sugar in lemonade?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Don't look at sweet tea. All right. So doing stuff like this one at a time is kind of painful, right? And like having to build all this out. It'd be nice if we had better tools for things like this. And it turns out there are some. And we're going to go to our handy, I'm going to try the Bing chatbot here, because why not, right? And I want more precise answers here. How do I find entity, oh my goodness, entity framework core objects to a dropdown? Let's see if this works for us. This idea of binding, data binding, says I'm going to connect this piece of data to this control here and do something with it. Let's see what we get from our Bing bot. Bing bot, Bing bot, Bing bot, Bing bot. Bing chat. All right, here we go. Fetch the records from the database using entity framework, copy them to a select list class object, can then be used for populating the dropdown list in NetCore. You can also add a default item to a dropdown list at first position when populating it. Okay, interesting. Let's click that option here. What do we get? I don't know if this is what we want here, but that's okay. Let's give it a try. Give it a try. Here's our context, controller. This, I don't think, no, this is a web. No. All right, so how do we do that? That in a forms application. And see if it can deal with my misspellings too. Oh yeah, that updated my query here. We'll see which chatbot's better. Yes. Yeah. I don't know if it's their own version of it or if they're just using the API. I never actually read enough to find out what it is. But apparently version 4 is even better, but you can only get it if you pay OpenAI for it. And I'm not about to do that. I'm tempted to ask the school to pay for it for me though. But I'm not going to pay, was it $38 a month or something? Like I'm not paying $40 a month out of my pocket just to play with fun things. But that's okay. All right, so a drop-down list, sure. Okay. Set the value here and try and bind it. We'll try and see. So it's category. Okay. It sounds like fun. Let's try it and see. So let's build out a drop-down list. That is our, the list box? I think that's the list box, right? Or is it the, because the combo box you can type in. We don't want to be able to type into something. We just want the list box here. See if we can do a list box. Now, this does give you options here to do data binding. But to do that, you have to like do all this data source stuff, and we don't have all the data source stuff done. So we have to do it by hand. So we're not going to use the data bound item. So we're going to figure out when this thing loads what we do with it here. So let's give this a name, call this our list course list box here. All right. And then when our program runs, let's view our code. Let's take our list box, course list box, right? And we have to do a couple things with it here. So set up some values, right? Set up, what is it? All right, we'll just copy here. So using our context here, so using our database equals a new database context. Eventually we'll get that out here. So we want to get the courses. So our courses, database.courses. And now you can do other fun things. So you can write these link style or SQL style queries to get specific information out. If we want to just something about these classes here, we could do that. Well, maybe we want to do that here. So let's see if we can generate that. So we want to take our courses. So we want so we want to select courses, course, and what do we want to select? We want course dot ID. Let's see, this is getting a little long here. Course ID and course toString. that going to give us what we want? No, it doesn't give us what we want. Let's see. Select. You adjust the course ID. Let's see. The example's not helping us here. Oh goodness. Where else can we get more help? Yeah, let's just grab all the courses. We'll just do courses. And so we need to set our data value field to something. So the data value field. Is it not? Oh, it's not giving me that. That must be a different drop-down list. It's not what we want here. All right, the chatbot's not helping us here. I wonder if we should try this one. Chat. You bind the framework table, the framework core table to a drop-down, or what? A list box in .NET Core Forms. See if this tells us anything. Aha. All right, so we set the data source. There we go. So we'll set the data source. Data source is my courses here, and then it says specifically we should take this to list, right? We want to make sure we get the whole list of them pulled all at once, pulled out. Then we can set the data source, course list box dot. What else do we have to do here then? The display member. What do we want to display here from our courses? Okay, so display member equals name. So name is the property here. We should be able to get. Okay, sure. Let's try name. And the selected index, start at 0. Sure, why not? Display member. Okay, let's try that. See if that works for us here. Oh, our course list box. See if we can get a list of courses to show in our dropdown. Look at that, we have the name of our courses in a list box. That's a lot easier, right? And I should be able to pick these things, but now what do I do when they're picked? Right, what do we want to do with it here? Well, that gets a little trickier here. So let's go and let's ask it some more then, right? So do I handle clicking on an item in the list box? The selected indexed changed here and do something with it. Okay, can we try that? So the selected item, right, needs to be the type that it is here. So we'll go back to our design view here. It should be the select index changed here. So if it's selected, it will go do something here. Oh, I should be adding all here. This was all ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT. We had a couple prompts here, right? I got to remember to save these as we go. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. I can edit my prompt. There we go. That's fun. All right, so it's not a list box. This is my course list box. Selected item. If it's not null, if I've selected something, I want the selected item, but it is the type of course. Right? This is a course here object from my course list box selected item. So we're casting it here because the list box itself is just some sort of object. It has no idea what it is. So we're specifically saying, hey, treat that thing we just grabbed as a course. And let's take our selected item dot, and now we can get at all of our properties here. So I don't know, what do we want to, let's just change the label, I guess. So we'll take our label one, set text is equal to my selected item dot, how about just the ID number, just for fun, 2-string, right? Just to see if it changes here. We just want to see it should be changing to the ID of the course as we go here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so as I click the course, I can get that course information off here. Right, maybe we want to go change these fields here then. So maybe we'll say instead of doing that then, We'll take our name text box. Nope. Oh goodness. Name text box and take the text of it into the selected item dot name. And this should probably be selected course, right? Selected course. It's probably a better name for it here. And then we'll take our number text box to the selected course.note. Look at that. I love how it suggests these things. Then we want the department text box is equal to the selected course.department. Okay, so as I pick these things, we should be able to go in dot text. There we go. I didn't know why that was red for a little bit there. So as I pick them, we'll go and update their values here, right? Excuse me. Then what we want to do, maybe we add a button here then for, this should be add or update, or should it just be add course? Do you want to be update course, or we can pick all sorts of interesting things here. We got choices, I guess. So add a new button. All right, so let's add a new button here. This will be for the update course button, right? Update course button. And then let's set this to update course. Sure. Update course, so add course, update course, sure. And then how about when our program starts, maybe we turn that off. So where's our initialize here? So we'll take our update course button, set enable to false, turn it off. And then as we check something here, right, let's set the, if it's not null, let's turn the button back on. My update course button dot enabled is true. We'll turn it back on if we select something. And then let's go back and start design view here. So when we call update course, we want to go update the course. So we have to go get the selected item first, right, to get that selected course, because that has the number, right? That's the one that needs to change in our database. We need to update that specific course in the database here. This is where it gets a little funny here, because we're going to try and now update this in the database. So we'll go and say, let's set this to false after we're done here. So we'll grab the course, and then we're going to take that selected course, and then we'll set the name to my name text box text, and the selected course dot department to the department text box, and the selected course my number to the number text box text. So we'll go and update this instance of course here, right? The one that was selected. So I have all those new values. Now the ID should still be the same. So now I need to go and take my database context, right? We need our using our database, new database context. We're going to take our courses, database.courses. Now what we want to do, we don't want to add anything, right? And update the selected course. And then we want to save our changes, database.save changes. Do you see if that works? Just give it a try. All right, so how do we change 297 to C# programming and fun stuff? Oh, I guess we got to click one first. Oops, C# programming and fun stuff. Update the course. All right, we'll turn the button off. And now it came back with the right thing here, right? When I click the button, right? That's interesting, right? Because we were getting that information off the course that was bound there. If I try my other button here, I see it updated properly. We're getting that information back. Cool. Now again, this add course is a little bit messy here. I don't have a good way to like pick none of these things because this is just the list box, like has to be picked. I don't know. That's a little bit ugly here, but we got some options here, right? I think how do you clear a selection? How do you clear a selection in a list box? Aha, set its selected index to -1. Or the clear selected method. I like that. So after we're done, should we clear the selection here? Set that enabled to false, save our changes. And this is our selected course list box. Oh, did it not clear? Oh, we don't have that. Shoot. Okay, we'll just do the.
Like, of course, the, month.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. List box. Dot. Clear selected. I think we probably want to do that initially too. Then, right? Do we go back to our design view? And we set that up initially, right, with a different value. We should set it up to -1. That should be nothing selected, right? I think that's what it said when it was initially selected. Okay, so nothing's picked. Cool. Interesting that we have data here, though. That's weird. I don't know why we have data there. That's weird, right? Must have picked it anyway. That's fine. So let's go in C# programming, update the course, right? Nothing's picked again. We can go back. And we're back here. Cool. So we can. I'm sorry?
So text preview, it still says C# programming and in the list box.
So this one was bound to this list of courses to list. So when the program loaded, we loaded it into memory as a specific list, and it's been kept there ever since. So if we want to change that, we need to go update our data sources here. So we probably want to do that as another method here then, right? So private void update data source for list box. We probably do this then, right? And then we can call this update after we update or add our courses, right? If we add a course, we want to update our list box. If we update a course, we want to update the list box, right? Oh, okay, so the selected index changed. Is that why? It must be running when we set it to -1 or something. That's interesting. I wonder if we can just call clear on it. So course list box dot clear selected. I wonder if that works for us. I'll try it and see. No, we still have something here. Oh well, that's fine. So let's see if it updates here. So and fun stuff. Update the course. Right now it updated here. That's a good sign. If we put it back, update the course, it updates here. Unselected. It's like magic, right? Feels like magic sometimes. Get our button. Cool. Now we can add these many of these as we want here, right? Again, it doesn't care if we have a bunch of duplicates, right? With a bunch of different IDs. C# doesn't care because the database just said, okay, every time you add something, I'll give it a new ID. That's on us to fix. Either at the database level, we can add other things to make them unique, or in our application, we can check for unique constraints and do all sorts of fun stuff there. But we got lots of options. So I guess we should check for that, right, before we add. Let's do that before we go add something. So add a course. So using the context, before we go add that course, let's go see if it already exists, right? So let's take our database courses, and we want to where course, no, I was giving it to me already. Where the C name matches the course name, right? And the C dot number matches the course dot number, right? And my C dot department matches the course dot department, right? If all of those things are true, then this is going to be no good, right? So we want to take those courses, right? So this is, I guess we want, what is this? I think any, right? If any match, so that should give me back a true or false. So if any of them match here for name, number, department here, then we want to not do this thing. Right? Maybe we just set the label one.text duplicate course found, and we would just return. We just bail out and just stop. Right? I don't know, aborted. I don't know, try again, I don't know, something, right? We some sort of useful message. If not, we'll go through and add it. Right? So let's go fix our data. So the problem is I can't fix the data here in the Server Explorer. If I want, I could go add another connection though. I could go connect to that database file that's in my bin debug here if I wanted. Now, it's going to be hard to tell them apart. So it gets a little funky when you do this, right? So you have to go and look and see where the file actually is here. But we should be able to go to our table here. What? Refresh. Oh, goodness. It didn't copy. Well, that's a problem. Oh, because it was copying if newer. Interesting. And it never showed this one as being newer. We might have a problem with our copy process. Maybe copy always might be better, but we can fix that later. So let's show the table data. Let's go get rid of some of these things here. So all these duplicates here, I'm going to go and delete the rows just to fix that. Okay. All right, and then we'll go close our connection. That's really weird. Can I just remove that one? Can't even remove it now, can I? Delete the connection? Sure. Oh, you know what? Let's just go change this to copy always, I guess. Do that one, right? Because that should change it for me. And then it won't exist anymore. Let's try that. Bing's chatbot is bad. It gets upset and closes the chat if you say it was wrong. Oh, goodness. Build errors. Where's our errors here? It says can't copy the file because it's in use. All right, we got to go and close it over here. Close the connection. Now it should copy over. Let's give that a shot. I'm trying to drink my Coke with the lid on. Oh, no. More build errors. What is it here? Oh, no, I just want the error list. Being used by another processor file? Huh. Didn't think it was in use. Didn't we close it down? Thought we closed it. It's interesting. Try it one more time. Copying here is sometimes annoying. Usually it works though. That's interesting. Watch it fail again. Nope, still failed. Process cannot access because it's in use. It's in use. Because I had my cursor on it? All right, that's not working either. We'll just close it and open it again. Oh, maybe one of these windows. I thought when I closed the connection, it would be okay, but maybe not. Let's go close all those down. Oh, we can just close everything, right? Just close it all. Close all tabs but this. One more try, and then we'll just close it and try it again. Nope. Close out GitHub too. Nothing. Okay. Let's close and try it again. Sometimes Visual Studio keeps files open. So this is really not the right way to do databases. We're doing it the lazy way, and that was causing problems. Let's try it again. All right, that worked. So instead of close it open, I guess. I think. Is it running? It's supposed to be running. Oh, goodness. Transient failure? Huh. That doesn't seem good. Enable retry on failure to the useSQL server call. Can't open database. The login failed. Oh dear. We broke it. It should just run. This is weird. Let's try it again. It's going to crash again, isn't it? Wow. Why did that not work? Database MDF file? Database MDF file? Let's see if we can connect it over here. Let's go add another connection. Oh, it says it's in use by another program. That's probably why I can't open it. Who has it open? All right, now I'm sad. Let's try it again here. Here's our bin. People sad, exactly, Wolf. People sad. No. What has it locked? That's crazy. All right, maybe we'll stop trying to copy it. This should be easier. I'm sorry. This is not. Let's go back and set this just to copy it from newer, maybe. Maybe we'll stop trying to copy to it. No? Still crashing. All right, one more try. Let's go and delete the database. Try again. It's open in SQL Server. Why does SQL Server have it open? Still open in SQL Server. All right, let's go kill some processes. Go to Task Manager. SQL Server. Let's go end that task. What's the worst that could happen, right? Come on, test project. So it should copy because it's going to be newer this time, right? I think, because it doesn't exist. All right, this isn't saying it doesn't exist now. Wouldn't it copy it? It didn't copy it at all. All right, well, let's just go copy by hand. Why not, right? Go copy our files. Shouldn't have to do this. It should just work. I'm sorry. It worked earlier today. All right, there we go. Got a couple in here. Let's go add this as a course. Oh, duplicate course found. Try again. All right, we got there. Hooray! We updated what was going on here, and we get our course information. We feel pretty good, right? So let's go add that course, right? So let's add CIS 275, discrete structures 1. Add the course. It's in the list here now. We should be able to see it. We can update it. Life should be good here. Awesome. All right. That was a lot of fun. Questions, thoughts, concerns? I just manually copied it myself from my project folder here into the bin debug directory. I don't know why this copy option wasn't going. It says it's supposed to copy if newer, and I think it's just confused and dumb. Not entirely sure why. Maybe rebooting would have taken care of it. I don't know. Sometimes you just got to try things. All right? Yeah.
For the in the for each thing now, for printing the course thing now.
Yep. Oh, that's where's that one here? Oh goodness. Form. That was my first button here, right? The button clicked. Let's add course. This one here on the regular button click.
Yeah. Each time that runs and creates the tab variable course, is that literally creating the database every time?
So when we get this courses list, it runs the database query. So just accessing this entity framework will go and query the database to get the list of courses.
Okay,
and then
when you query it, once it gets in there.
So it generally does it smartly, and I don't entirely know how it determines what smartly is. But if I say courses to list, it will force it to go get every course once. If I just say courses here, it may or may not load all of them at once. And I honestly, I don't remember what, like, how you determine. I think so. So if we had like billions of courses here, we wouldn't want to load them all at once, and somehow we'd have to do this smartly. And I think it manages that by itself. I don't entirely know how Entity Framework works, to be honest. It just does. But I think Entity Framework Core is open source. I think, is it? Entity Framework open source. Let's see if it is or not. Yes, it is open source. So if you want to go look and see what it does, go nuts. Let's see. Can we find their GitHub repo? Is this the EF core. No, this is not what I'm looking for. Where's their model? Their GitHub. GitHub, Microsoft. We just search their repositories. The framework. EF core, called EF. Maybe it's not. I thought it was. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but somewhere out there, I'm sure we can find it. All right. So we've got this database built. I think just using it and building a little more functionality here, it would suffice for the next project. Usually I have you build a whole other one from scratch, but that seems like a lot of work. And ideally, we can just get this done in a week. Does that sound good? Let me go set up another GitHub repository link. So you're welcome to start with this test project, because that way the database is already built. You don't have to go through and build anything else out yourself. It'll save us a little bit of headache here. And winter 2023. This is project 4, I think. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. C#. Now, if you have the database file and you want to get it in the repository, remember you have to go and edit this git ignore file. Your git ignore file by default wants to ignore database files because they're always going to change every time, and there's better ways to do it. Again, we're being lazy, so you'll have to go change git ignore to be able to add the database file, right? If you want to copy it over. But other than that, it should work out pretty well for you if you want to do it that way.
To change it to this right now, just I think I'm doing wrong.
No, you just open it up as some sort of text editor and go find where it has the MDF file. Like mine's already removed, right? And just remove that line. I think we had that before. Where do we do that? In here. Let's look at the history on this. Nope, on the git ignore. So I just removed those lines.
That's all.
Yep. Yeah, and then you can commit MDF files to it.
Okay, and so we don't like change the actual ignore thing.
You change the git ignore file. So you open the git ignore file.
File content.
Yep.
Not like that.
Yeah, you can just change the name of it. Or no, change the contents, not the name or anything like that, and that should be all you need. Yep. All right.
Just those 5 lines.
Yeah, just these couple ones here. Yeah, you can get rid of those. All right, awesome. So let's go add project 4. This will be our last individual project. Framework. So we'll say 2 weeks. Again, ideally you get it done by next week, but it shouldn't be too much trouble here. I don't even think I want it to be worth as many points either because it's small. I could just do 20 points on that.
Sure.
All right. We submit the URL to your repository. So using the class example, add the ability to add students, select a student and a section, and register that student for that section. Allow the user to delete registrations. So adding some create, read, update, delete functionality, that's CRUD. They're common database operations. You can create data or insert data. You can update data. You can read the data, and you can delete the data. So that we can add students, add/update students, select a student and a section, register the student for that section. So we did courses. We didn't actually get into sections yet, but the same idea. You want to throw them into some list somewhere, map them all, and you're off to the races. You can do other fun things if you want it. So if I wanted to say, let's filter our sections here, let's do that real quick, and then I'll show you because the filtering bit's really fun. So let's go to our form design view. Let's go add a filter. So let's add a, where's my common items here? Here's my text box. Usually you filter at the top, right? So we'll call this our course filter here. And then we'll just add, I don't know, you could probably add a label later, but that's okay. So when this one changes then, we want on the text changed. What we want to do is we want to go update this list here, or update data source for list box. Anytime the text changes, but we want to change this method now to not just take courses here. We want to take courses where my course.name starts with my course filter text. So give me just courses where the name starts with this text here. But I only want to do that if it's not blank. Right? So if my course filter.text does not equal nothing, right? Or I guess if it does equal, if it equals nothing, then maybe we'll set that text to something else here. So we'll have a string for filter. Let's do this up here. Just trying to save a little bit of typing here. So we'll set the filter to this, and then if my filter is empty, I don't think it's going to work with the starts. Well, maybe it'll work with that. We'll try it. We'll try it in first anyway. I'm not sure how well that's going to work. Because I think if it's empty, it might cause us trouble. I don't think it'll give us back true. Oh goodness, semicolon expected. There we go. Yeah, okay, so it didn't, it was empty. So let's stop that. So let's go say if it's empty. So if my filter is null or empty, there we go. Filter equals an empty string. So we want, I don't think that's going to do it either. Shoot. Nope, okay. Sorry. If this is null or empty, is null or empty, then we'll do no filter. Right? We just want all of them to list. Otherwise, shoot. Let me get back here. This is a list of courses, list of courses. All right, so if it's empty, we'll get all of the courses. Otherwise, we want the filtered courses. There we go. And then I'll take that to list. Right, does that make sense? So we'll say, hey, if there's no filter here, nothing typed in, just give me every course. If there's something typed in, though, get where the course name starts with whatever you typed in. And maybe we don't even want maybe we don't want names. We want, what would you filter by? Like by department? Or would you want? Oh, no, that's fine. So we'll do contains. How about that? That's just fun. So we'll filter on name here for contains. Let's see if that works for us. So if the course name has something, so if we want SCI, we get science. Just SC, we get discrete. Programming here. So as we type, right, we start filtering these things. It contains the letter A, right? We're just checking contains. So let's just filter. This is kind of a nice handy way here to do this. Right? Is that fun? Now the other piece that we don't have though, our course customization. It'd be nice if we had another attribute to use to like show this whole piece of information here. Right? So department and the number and all these things. So I'm going to add a public, I'm going to add a new property here. So this is what, like full string, full description. And then the description here then is going to be my toString. So in my form here then, when I'm getting out a particular property, right, we said, hey, I want to map to name. We had to map to an attribute, to a property. Now I can map to full description here, and I can get all of the text there on this object. And then my course, I can do think full description here as well to see if the description contains that. I think I can do that because it's part of the class. Let's see. Yeah, okay, we gotta make our list box a little bigger here. Make this list box. Come on. Come on. List box. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So now I should be able to filter on any of those, like 3. Oh, goodness. Nope. Shoot. All right, we got to change the order here. So let's do, we want courses, toList, .where. I think that'll work here. Let's try that. Oops, what did I do wrong here? Text, no. Cannot implicitly convert type. Oh, because it's just a new one. Okay, so one more toList. When I use the where, it did it again. Let's try that. ID 2, 23. Oh, they all have 297. How about 3? There we go. 275. Cool. So now I can filter on any of these things here, right? ID 4. Right? So we added that as a property so that I can map to it in my mappings, and then I can filter off of it. Now it failed the first time. I kind of skipped over that. I'm sorry. When I was trying to just do a direct where first, it was saying it couldn't translate that into the SQL query. Because what Entity Framework does is it tries to turn these link expressions into SQL queries to be smart about it. But I said, let's do it the dumb way. Give me everything first, then I'm going to filter it. So filtering things this way is doing it in memory is not ideal if you have a very large data set. Databases are really good at filtering and saying, hey, just give me the data that matches. So if I've got a gazillion courses and I only want to pull some of that out of the database, it's better to do that with a database query than to load all gazillion and then go filter down to the ones I want. Right? We're doing extra work here. So this is a little bit ugly, but again, we're just kind of working around here using our full description property to make this work for us. The other thing you can do at the database level, you can add computed fields. Then I can say, hey, database, pretend like there's a field and it is all of these values, just like we did here with our course customization. We could add another field that is all of this. You could do the exact same thing at the database level if you wanted to do that. It's a lot more work, and you have to know a lot more things about databases. So, all right. How are you feeling? Do you think we can add an update for students, select a student, select a section, register them for the section, and delete the registration? So add some more drop-down, add some more boxes, do some more bindings here. So you don't have to fit it all on one screen. You can have multiple forms if you want. That's another option. If you want to throw it all in one big ugly form, that's great too. Again, I make ugly things. I don't make pretty things. I'm not good at user experience, user design, that sort of stuff. If you are, go for it. Go nuts, right? You're welcome to make it as pretty as you want here. The function is the important part here, okay? All right, awesome. So let me get this committed to GitHub, and you can use this as a starting point so you don't have to build your own database. Hopefully that goes out pretty well here. So we want 297. No, that's the wrong one. 297 for this winter semester. Here's more DB stuff. Commit and push. I wonder, did that file time ever change? I feel like it should have, right? Where's that? I called it test project. 742. Yes, it did change. So something must have been locked somewhere that wasn't updating it. I don't know what all that was, but at some point, one of the shutdown and opens made this current. So I feel good. All right, and you're welcome to do this one in groups. You can work together if you want. Again, it would have been better if we had something larger to tackle, but that's okay. You don't need a lot more work. Yeah. Yeah, so you're welcome to just take this file and use it. If you want to build it yourself, go for it. You can just follow along to what we did in class. Either way is perfectly fine, whatever you prefer. We're not a database class, so I don't expect you to know a lot of the database things, but it's kind of cool. You point your code at it and say go, and then you get code from your database. So it's not always the most practical option. Sometimes you might want to make your code build a database for you, which is really fun too. And depending on what you're working on, it might not be a new project. And they might say, hey, there's an existing database, go do something with it. So it's nice if you can just generate code off that existing database. And there's all sorts of fun things you can do with Entity Framework and other options. And again, there's a whole bunch of stuff online you can read as well, which is pretty cool. All right, so I'll end the stream. Thanks for being online, everybody. Thanks again for all the subs. That was super awesome. Pumping up the money in the scholarship fund. So awesome. Take care, folks.